Williams was a man of great wealth, the kind that most could only dream of. He owned a sprawling mansion with gleaming marble floors, high ceilings, and countless rooms filled with luxurious furniture. He was respected by many in the city, a successful businessman who had built his empire from the ground up. But despite all his wealth, Williams lived a lonely life. He had no wife, no children, and only a few close friends. His world was filled with work and endless meetings. But there was one person who had always been by his side: his maid, Zainab. Zainab had worked for Williams for many years. She was quiet, diligent, and always seemed to know when he needed something. Her gentle nature made her popular with the rest of the staff, and her kindness had earned her Williams' respect. She came from a small village far from the city, a place where dreams were hard to come by. Zainab's mother, who was once a maid for Williams' family, had arranged for her daughter to work in the mansion when she was just a teenager. Zainab had no family left in the city, and her life had always been centered around her work. But recently, Williams had begun to notice something strange about Zainab. She had become more distant, more secretive. She would often leave the house late at night, her usual smile replaced with a look of worry. At first, Williams thought little of it. But as the days went by, his curiosity grew. What was Zainab hiding? Was there someone else in her life? One night, after the house had fallen into a peaceful silence, Williams decided to follow her. He quietly got dressed, careful not to disturb the servants' quarters, and waited for Zainab to leave. As the clock struck midnight, he saw her slip out the back door, dressed in her usual maid's outfit. But there was something different in her step. It was as if she was trying to be discreet, hiding her actions from view. Williams followed her at a distance, not making a sound. He watched as Zainab walked through the quiet streets of the city, her pace quickening as she approached the outskirts. Williams felt his heart race. He had no idea what he was expecting to find, but his instincts told him that something wasn't right. As they walked deeper into the night, Williams couldn't help but feel a sense of unease creeping over him. After what felt like an eternity, Zainab stopped in front of an old building. It was dark and abandoned, with peeling paint and broken windows. She glanced around nervously, her eyes darting to the shadows. Then, as if to confirm something in her mind, she stepped inside. Williams waited for a moment before slipping quietly toward the building. He wasn't sure why he was so nervous, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to happen. He carefully peeked through a cracked window, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Inside, Zainab was talking to someone. But it wasn't just any conversation. The man she was with had a stern look on his face, and there was something about the way they spoke that made William's heart sink. Zainab was laughing, but there was no warmth in her voice. It was as though she was pretending to be happy, hiding something behind her smile. Then, to William's shock, he saw the man hand Zainab a large envelope. She took it quickly, her hands trembling as she tucked it into her bag. The man gave her a cold nod, and she turned, walking briskly out of the building. William's mind was racing. What had just happened? What was in that envelope? Who was the man, and why had Zainab been so secretive about this meeting? As Zainab walked back toward the mansion, Williams followed her from a safe distance, his mind filled with questions. He had to know more. He had to find out the truth. When Zainab arrived home, she seemed different. Her usual calm demeanor was replaced with an air of anxiety. Williams stayed hidden, watching from a distance as she entered the house, her footsteps heavy. He knew he couldn't confront her right away. He needed more answers, more evidence to understand what was really going on. That night, as Williams lay in bed, he couldn't shake the image of Zainab's nervous face and the mysterious envelope she had received. His mind raced with possibilities. Was she involved in something dangerous? Or was there more to her story than he could possibly imagine? He decided to wait. The truth was close, he could feel it. But what if the truth was something he wasn't prepared to face? The next morning, Williams could hardly concentrate. He watched Zainab go about her work as usual, but now every glance, every movement she made felt like it was hiding something. He wanted to ask her what happened last night, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. He was too afraid of the answer. It was only when Zainab left the house again that evening that Williams knew he had to act. This time, he was going to follow her even closer. He would find out what was really going on. But as he quietly moved through the house, preparing to leave once more, something unexpected happened. Zainab's voice echoed through the hallway. "Mr. Williams," she said softly. "Are you following me?" Williams froze. He hadn't expected her to know. He wasn't ready for this confrontation. Zainab turned slowly, her eyes locking with his. There was no anger in her expression, only sadness. "You've been watching me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why?" Williams had no answer. All he could do was stand there, waiting for the truth to be revealed. The tension in the air was thick, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Zainab's gaze softened, and she took a step forward. "I never wanted you to find out this way," she said, her voice trembling. But before she could say anything else, a loud noise interrupted them. The sound of a car screeching to a halt outside. William's heart skipped a beat. He rushed to the window, his eyes scanning the street outside. What he saw made his blood run cold. A black car had pulled up in front of the house. The door swung open, and out stepped a tall, menacing figure. He wore a dark suit and had a cold, calculating look on his face. But what caught Williams' attention most was the strange symbol on the man's jacket. It was a symbol Williams had seen before, on the envelope Zainab had hidden away. The man was coming for Zainab, and he had no idea why. The figure in the dark suit stood outside the mansion, the headlights of the car casting a long shadow across the driveway. William's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the man's every move. There was something about him, something that made Williams feel both threatened and intrigued. The man moved with purpose, his steps calculated, as though he knew exactly where he was going. Zainab, unaware of the danger lurking outside, stood in the hallway, her face pale, her eyes avoiding Williams. She had always been so careful, so composed, yet now she seemed fragile, as though she were about to break. Williams could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on him. He knew the truth was within reach, but what would it cost him? He took a deep breath, gathering his courage. "Zainab," he said softly, stepping toward her. "Who is that man? Why is he here?" She flinched, her body tensing as if struck. Her lips parted, but no words came out. For a moment, it felt as if time stood still. Then, she finally spoke, her voice trembling. "You don't understand," Zainab whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. "I never wanted you to know. I didn't want anyone to know." Williams was about to ask more, but Zainab's gaze flicked nervously toward the window. She could see the man standing in the driveway, waiting. Her breathing quickened, and for the first time, Williams saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "He's here for the money," Zainab said, her voice cracking. "I've been paying him. I didn't have a choice." Williams stepped closer, the weight of her words sinking in. "Paying him for what?" he demanded, his voice sharp. "What money, Zainab? What are you involved in?" Zainab swallowed hard, struggling to speak through the lump in her throat. "I've been helping him," she said, her hands shaking. "He promised to help me get my brother out of the hospital. He's sick, Mr. Williams. He needs treatment, but I couldn't afford it. He told me that if I gave him enough money, he'd help. He said he had connections, that he could get him the care he needed. But I didn't know who he really was, or what he wanted in return." William's mind raced. It was all starting to come together. The mysterious meetings, the nervousness in her eyes, the hidden envelope. Zainab had been caught in something far bigger than she had realized. And now, it seemed, she was being dragged into a world she couldn't escape. "Why didn't you tell me?" Williams asked, his voice softer now. "Why didn't you trust me?" Zainab's eyes filled with tears. "I couldn't," she whispered. "I didn't want to get you involved. You're my boss. I didn't want you to see me like this. But now I don't know what to do. He's going to take everything from me, Mr. Williams. I'm scared." Williams reached out, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. He wasn't sure what to do or say, but he knew one thing for sure. Zainab needed help. The woman who had served him so loyally for all these years was in danger, and he couldn't stand by and do nothing. "Zainab will figure this out," Williams said firmly. "You're not alone in this. We'll stop him." But Zainab pulled away, shaking her head. "You don't understand. He's dangerous. He's not just a man who needs money. He's involved in things that go beyond what you know. There's more to him than you realize." Before Williams could respond, there was a knock at the door. The sudden sound startled both of them. Zainab froze, her body stiffening in fear. "It's him," she said, her voice barely audible. Williams could feel the tension in the air, as if it were a physical force pressing down on him. He glanced at Zainab, then toward the door, knowing what he had to do. He couldn't let this man into the house. Not now. Not when the truth was so close. "Stay here," he whispered to Zainab, his voice full of authority. "I'll handle this." But Zainab grabbed his arm, her fingers trembling. "Please," she begged, "don't confront him. He's too powerful. You don't know who you're dealing with." Williams took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. "I know enough. Trust me." With that, he moved toward the door. Zainab hesitated for a moment, then slowly stepped back into the shadows, watching as Williams opened the door. The man in the suit stood in the doorway, his cold eyes locking onto Williams. "I assume you're Mr. Williams," the man said, his voice low and smooth. "I've come for what's owed to me." Williams didn't flinch. "I don't know who you are and I don't care," he said, his voice steady. "But I'm not handing over anything to you." The man smiled, a cruel, humorless smile. "You think you have a choice?" he asked, stepping closer. "I always get what I want, and if I don't get it from you, I'll take it from her." Zainab stepped forward, her face pale with fear. William's heart sank as he saw the desperation in her eyes. This man wasn't just threatening him, he was threatening her. "Please," Zainab said, her voice cracking. "I'll pay you. Just leave him alone. Don't hurt him." The man's smile faded. "You misunderstand, my dear," he said, his tone cold. "It's not just about the money. It's about control. And right now, I have all the control." Williams stepped forward, his body tense with anger. "I won't let you do this. Not to her, not to anyone." But the man just laughed, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You think you can stop me? You have no idea what you're up against." The sound of his voice was chilling, but it was the look in his eyes that terrified Williams the most. This man wasn't just a criminal. He was a force to be reckoned with, someone who could destroy everything in his path. And Williams knew, deep down, that the only way to protect Zainab and himself was to fight back. But how? What did this man want from them, and how far was he willing to go to get it? Before Williams could say another word, the man turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. His words lingered in the air like a threat. Zainab stood there, shaking, her eyes wide with fear. "It's not over, Mr. Williams," she whispered. "This is just the beginning." The tension between them hung heavy, and Williams couldn't help but wonder just how far this dangerous game would go. The next few days felt like a blur. Williams could hardly think straight. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that man. His cold, calculating gaze, and the chilling words he had spoken. It was clear that the danger was far from over, but Williams couldn't understand the depth of it all. Who was this man? What did he want from Zainab? And why was she caught in the middle of this dangerous web? Zainab had been distant, and Williams couldn't blame her. She was clearly scared, and despite everything he had said, she wasn't convinced that they could fight back. The man who had threatened them wasn't just any ordinary criminal. There was something much darker about him. Something that made Zainab believe that no one could stop him. On the evening of the third day after the confrontation, Zainab's anxiety had reached a boiling point. She was shaking with fear, her eyes darting around the house as though she were expecting someone to burst through the door at any moment. Williams had done everything he could to reassure her, but it was clear that she didn't believe she was safe. "Zainab, listen to me," Williams said, trying to calm her down. He had been doing this for hours, talking to her, trying to make her understand that they could do something to stop this. "I won't let him hurt you. We'll figure this out together. But Zainab was too consumed by fear to hear him. She was lost in her own world of dread and guilt. I shouldn't have gotten involved, she muttered to herself, her voice barely audible. I should have just kept my head down and stayed out of it. Williams felt a pang of sympathy for her. She was a victim, caught in something she didn't understand, and yet she blamed herself. He wanted to protect her, to fix everything, but he didn't know how. He had money, power, influence, but none of it could stop the fear that gripped her. He could see it in her face. She was afraid to even leave the house. Zainab, Williams said softly, I know you're scared, but you're not alone. You have me. I won't let anything happen to you. For a moment, she looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. But before she could respond, there was a knock at the door. Williams froze. The sound echoed through the hallway, and Zainab's face went pale. It's him, she whispered, her voice trembling. Williams rushed to the door, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what to expect, whether it was the man in the suit or something worse. But he wasn't going to let fear control him. He opened the door cautiously, ready to face whatever was waiting for him on the other side. To his surprise, it wasn't the man in the suit. It was a young woman, no older than 25, standing on the doorstep with a worried expression on her face. She was dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit, something that spoke of wealth, but in a quiet, understated way. Her hair was long, tied back in a neat ponytail, and her eyes were a deep, piercing brown. Mr. Williams? She asked, her voice soft but firm. Williams glanced over his shoulder at Zainab, who was standing in the background, watching nervously. Yes, he replied cautiously. The young woman stepped forward, her gaze locking with his. I need to speak with you, she said, her tone serious. It's about Zainab. Williams felt a chill run down his spine. What now? Another threat? Another complication in this tangled mess? But the woman's expression was one of genuine concern, not malice. He stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. Please come inside, he said. The woman entered cautiously, her eyes flicking to Zainab, who was still standing in the doorway. Zainab's expression was one of confusion and fear. The young woman looked at her with a soft, almost apologetic expression before turning back to Williams. I'm Zara, she said, introducing herself. I'm here to warn you about something. Something that's happening right now. Williams felt his heart race again. What are you talking about? Zara glanced at Zainab, her voice lowering as if afraid someone might overhear. The man you've been dealing with, the one who threatened you both, he's not just a random criminal. He's part of something much bigger. Zainab's eyes widened. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling. Zara took a deep breath. The man you saw, the one in the suit, his name is Abu. He's part of a powerful criminal organization. They don't just deal with money. They deal with people. They traffic people, Zainab. They sell them. And you... Zara paused, glancing at Williams and then back at Zainab. You got caught in the middle of it. They've been watching you for a long time. I was sent to help you. Zainab recoiled, her face turning ashen. What? No, I don't. Zainab, Zara interrupted gently. You were chosen because of your connection to Mr. Williams. The organization is trying to get close to him. And if they can't get to him directly, they'll use you to manipulate him. They already know how to control people, how to get them to do what they want. Williams stepped forward, his mind racing with this new information. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Abu was part of a criminal organization, and they had been targeting Zainab all along? But why didn't you tell me earlier? Williams demanded, his voice strained with frustration. Why didn't you warn me? Zara lowered her head, guilt evident in her eyes. I couldn't, Mr. Williams. I've been trying to gather information without putting anyone at risk. But now that you know, we need to act fast. Abu won't stop until he gets what he wants. Zainab's breathing was shallow, her hands shaking at her sides. What do we do now? She asked, barely able to speak the words. Zara looked at them both with determination. We need to get you both out of here. The longer you stay, the more dangerous it becomes. They'll be watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. Williams nodded slowly, his mind made up. He had to protect Zainab. He had to get her away from this nightmare. "What's the plan?" he asked, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts racing through his mind. Zara's face hardened. "We'll leave the city. Go somewhere they'll never find you." "But I can't leave," Zainab said in a panicked voice. "My family. I have to." "No," Zara interrupted gently. "Your family is in danger too. They'll target anyone close to you. We have to take you away, somewhere safe." Williams stood silently, his resolve hardening. He had no choice. If they wanted to survive, they had to leave everything behind. But just as they were about to make a move, the door suddenly crashed open with a deafening bang. The door exploded open with a violent crash, sending a chill of fear through the room. Williams instinctively stepped in front of Zainab, his body tensing as the loud bang reverberated through the mansion. He had been ready for a fight, but this felt different. Something told him that the stakes had just been raised to a level he hadn't prepared for. Zara spun around, her face paling at the sight of who stood in the doorway. William's heart sank as he recognized the tall, menacing figure that now filled the doorway. Abu, the man in the dark suit, the one who had threatened Zainab. "Did you really think you could hide from me?" Abu's voice was smooth but filled with dark undertones, the kind that promised pain and suffering. His cold eyes swept over the room, taking in the fear, the tension. "You've made a grave mistake, Mr. Williams." Zara moved quickly, positioning herself in front of Zainab, her expression now one of fierce resolve. "We were just about to leave Abu," she said, her voice calm but laced with underlying fear. "Let them go. You don't have to do this." Abu's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Oh, I'm not here to talk. I'm here to finish what I started." His eyes flicked over to Zainab, who stood trembling behind Zara, her face pale with fear. "And you," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You thought you could escape? Thought you could run from us?" Williams took a step forward, his fists clenched at his sides, heart pounding in his chest. He couldn't let this man win. Not now, not after everything that had happened. He had to protect Zainab. He had to stop this. "You want me?" Williams said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his insides. "Then come at me. Leave her out of this." Abu laughed, a deep, menacing sound that echoed off the walls. "I'm not here for you, Williams. You're just a pawn in all this." His eyes turned cold. "But I'll make you suffer, just for the fun of it." Zara's hand shot out, grabbing Williams' arm. "No, Williams, don't provoke him. He's dangerous." But it was too late. Before she could finish, Abu lunged forward, faster than Williams had anticipated. The man's hand shot out, grabbing Williams by the throat, lifting him off his feet with ease. The pressure on his neck was unbearable, and for a moment he couldn't breathe. "Don't ever think you can control this situation, Williams," Abu sneered, his grip tightening. "I own this city, and everyone in it." Williams' vision blurred as his lungs screamed for air, but he refused to give up. His hands scrambled to break free, his mind racing. Zainab. He had to protect Zainab. In that instant, something inside him snapped. A surge of adrenaline coursed through his body. With all his remaining strength, Williams reached up and managed to grab Abu's arm, twisting it as he threw his weight to the side. Abu grunted in pain but held firm, unwilling to let go. But Williams' determination was unyielding. He used every ounce of his strength to push off the floor, landing a punch to Abu's side that made the man stagger back, releasing his grip. Abu looked at him, his expression darkening with fury. "You think you can stop me?" he hissed, wiping blood from his lip. "You're dead wrong." But as Abu stepped forward to strike again, Zara stepped into the fray. She moved swiftly, grabbing a vase from the nearby table and smashing it over Abu's head. The impact made a sickening thud, and Abu staggered back, dazed. "Run now," Zara shouted, her eyes filled with urgency. "This is our chance." Without thinking, Williams grabbed Zainab's hand, pulling her toward the back door. She was still shaking, but she moved quickly, her fear now mixed with something else. A glimmer of hope. The door slammed open as they rushed through it, but just as they stepped into the garden, Williams felt a sharp pain in his side. He looked down to see blood soaking through his shirt. Abu had followed them outside. "I told you it wasn't over," Abu growled, his face twisted with rage. "You won't get away that easily." Williams tried to steady himself, his legs shaking with pain. But before Abu could strike again, the sound of police sirens filled the air. In the distance, blue and red lights flashed, growing closer. "Too late," Abu spat. "But this isn't over." He turned, disappearing into the night, vanishing like a shadow in the dark. William's knees buckled, but he refused to fall. He had to stay standing for Zainab, for everything he had just fought for. Minutes later, the police arrived, rushing toward them. Zara stepped forward to meet them, her face calm, but Williams could see the worry in her eyes. "We're safe now," Zara said softly. "It's over. For now." Zainab clung to Williams, her face buried in his chest as she sobbed, the weight of everything she had been through finally catching up to her. Williams wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly, knowing that they had survived something no one should ever have to face. As the police began to take statements and search the area, Williams looked at Zainab, his heart heavy with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. "It's not over," Zainab whispered, lifting her tear-streaked face to his. "But we'll fight through it. Together." Williams nodded, a fierce determination growing inside him. He would protect her, no matter the cost. And as the police took over the scene, Williams knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning of a battle that would take everything they had. But together they could face anything.